හරිම සුමුදුයි.
Tonight on Fast at 9, this Sunday the 5th of November 2023. Incessant rains, heavy rainfall claims the lives of 2 in separate incidents. More rains expected to parts of Sri Lanka in the coming days. Implementing reforms, Sri Lankan school system to undergo digitalization next year, says Education Minister.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is AdaDerana First at 9 with Amawata. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very warm welcome. We have a number of stories coming up tonight from across Sri Lanka and around the world tonight. But first, a look at your headline-making local stories. Reservoirs reached spill level and roads were inundated in certain parts of the country due to prevailing inclement weather patterns experienced in parts of the country. A 2-year-old and a 37-year-old woman were reported dead in 2 separate incidents related to heavy rains. The Met Department, meanwhile, forecast rain and heavy showers over most parts of the island during the evening hours.
Heavy rains were expected in certain parts of the country last evening, along with several low-lying areas, and roads in some areas reported submerged as a result. Meanwhile, the irrigation department stated that several rivers and reservoirs have reached maximum capacity due to the prevailing inclement weather. 8 sluice gates of the Rajangane reservoir were opened to release 10,850 cubic feet of water per second into Kalaoya. In the meantime, a water capacity of 4,100 cubic feet per second was released as a result of the opening of 2 sluice gates of the Angamur tank in the Anuradhapura district. Further, 6 sluice gates of the Veharagal reservoir in Buttala were opened due to the current heavy rains. As a result, the Disaster Management Centre has requested the general public to remain vigilant when using the river Manik. Concurrently, 5 sluice gates of the Daduroya were also opened as a result of incessant rains. With the opening of several sluice gates in Udawalawe reservoir, the Lingasthura in Ambalantara began to overflow. Meanwhile, a 2-year-old residing in the Madurankuliya area in Putlam has reportedly died after falling into a nearby canal. In a separate incident, a family of 3 were injured after being struck by lightning in the Kuravil area in Mullativ. The injured are currently receiving treatment at the Jaffna Teaching Hospital. A woman was reported dead after a mound of earth collapsed onto a fruit stall in the Rambukwella area along the Kandi Mahiyangania main road. The 37-year-old victim was identified as the owner of the fruit stall in question. 24 residences in Kegol were damaged due to strong winds owing to the inclement weather. Meanwhile, in Columbo, measures are currently underway to remove several trees in Columbo which pose a threat to the lives of the general public. The Met Department forecasts that showers or thunder showers are likely to occur at several places in most provinces of the island during afternoon hours. Fairly heavy showers above 75 mm are expected to occur at some places in western, central, Sabaragamuwa, northwestern, north central and southern provinces.
Minister of Education Dr. Susil Premajayantha says his ministry is taking measures to obtain provisions to digitalize the school system by year 2024, that's next year, but underscored that the initiative brings about numerous challenges. Accordingly, methods used to reach the existing syllabus or teach the existing syllabus will be changed. The Education Minister went on to say that reforms to the education system is, however, not the solution to all issues at present.
An event to mark the recruitment of 4,672 new principals to the third grade of the principal service was held at the DS Senanayaka College in Columbo under the patronage of Minister of Education Dr. Susil Premachandra yesterday morning.
මට පේනවා බැලු බැලමට මෙතන ඉන්න අලුත් විදුහල්පතිතුමන්ලා තුමියන්ලා තව අවුරුදු 20ක් 25ක්වත් වැඩ කරන්න පුළුවන් අය. වර්තමානයේ විදුහල්පතින්ට එන අභියෝගය කලින් අවුරුදු 5කට කලින් 10කට කලින් 20ට 30 40 ඒගොල්ලන්ට තිබ්ච අභියෝග නෙවෙයි. ඊට වඩා වෙනස් වූ අභියෝග අද ලබන අවුරුද්දේ පාසල් පද්ධතියම ඩිජිටල්කරණය කරන්න අවශ්‍ය ප්‍රතිපාදන ලබාගෙන වැඩකට දැන් කරන් යනවා. ඒවට අපි සූදානම් වෙනවා. මාර්තු අප්‍රේල් වෙනකොට පාසල් පටන් ගන්නවා එකේ බීකසි පාසල් සියල්ල පළවන වටේදී ඩිජිටල්කරණය කරනවා. එතකොට ගුරුවරු පුහුණු කරන්න වෙනවා. විදුහල්පතිවරු දැම්මම පුහුණු කරන්න වෙනවා. ඒ සියල්ලම එකවර යන්න වෙනවා විශාල අභියෝගයක් යනවා. ඒතර අපි ආරම්භ කරන ලබන අවුරුද්දේ අධ්‍යාපන ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණ වැඩසටහන දිගටම කරගෙන යන්න පුළුවන්. අධ්‍යාපන ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණය ඔක්කොටම විසඳුමක් නෙවෙයි. මේ අලුතෙන්ම විෂය නිර්දේශයක් ගේනව නෙවෙයි. මේ තීන විෂය නිර්දේශයන් ඒ යුනිට්ස් ඉගැන්වීමේ ක්‍රමවේදයේ වෙනස්කම් විතරයි වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් ඒක නිසා විශාල අභියෝගයක් අපි ඔක්කොම ඉස්සරහා තියෙනවා.
11 Sri Lankan nationals from Gaza who entered Egypt through the Rafah border crossing reached Sri Lanka this morning via a flight from Doha, Qatar. Meanwhile, the war between Israel and Hamas continued for a 30th day with more casualties reported in Gaza. According to the Health Ministry of Palestine, over 9,700 people have died in Gaza due to Israel airstrikes. The Israeli Defense Minister vowed that his country's forces will hunt down and eliminate the Hamas Gaza chief. He also called on the people of the Palestinian enclave to find and kill the terror group's Gaza chief, adding that it would shorten the war.
30 days have passed since the escalation of tensions between Israel and Hamas militants following the surprise attack launched by Hamas in southern Israel, killing at least 1,400 people. Since then, Israel, which launched an offensive in Gaza by air and land, have claimed the lives of over 9,700 Palestinians, which includes at least 3,900 children and 2,500 women. Last night, dozens were killed and many more injured in a blast at the Al-Maghazi refugee camp in the central Gaza Strip. Palestinian authorities blame Israel Defense Forces for exploding the refugee camp in an airstrike, killing at least 52 people. It was also reported that a freelance photojournalist with the Turkish news agency Anadolu named Muhammad Alilul lost 4 of his children and 3 siblings in the attack. The Israeli Defense Forces said it is looking into the circumstances around the explosion. In this backdrop of heavy fighting, Israel Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said the country's military would hunt down and eliminate Hamas Gaza chief Yahya Sinwar. He also called on the people of the Palestinian enclave to find and kill the terror group's Gaza chief Yahya Sinwar, adding that it would shorten the war. Meanwhile, the Israel Defense Forces said it will allow people in Gaza to evacuate south on specified streets today. The announcement of the window, which will be 4 hours, comes after a US official told media that Hamas was blocking foreign nationals from leaving Gaza after an Israeli airstrike on an ambulance near a hospital on Friday. In the meantime, hundreds of family members of Israeli hostages taken by Hamas in attacks on the 7th of October held a rally in front of the government's military headquarters in Tel Aviv last evening, demanding great actions by the government to release the hostages. More than 200 hostages are still being held in Gaza after Hamas's attacks nearly a month ago. In other parts of the world, thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters rallied in Washington calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and an end to US aid to Israel. In London, thousands of people gathered in the UK capital to call for a ceasefire in Gaza as airstrikes and fighting on the ground continue. London police arrested 29 people in the protest, citing offences including inciting racial hatred, racially motivated crimes, violence and assaulting a police officer. Meanwhile, yesterday, the Embassy of Sri Lanka in Cairo, in coordination with the Egyptian authorities and the Sri Lankan representative in Ramallah, facilitated the entry of 11 Sri Lankan nationals belonging to 2 families who were stranded in the Gaza Strip into Egypt through the Rafah border crossing. A team of officials from the embassy in Cairo received the 11 Sri Lankans at the Egyptian side of the Rafah border and made arrangements to provide transportation to Cairo for facilitation of their return to Sri Lanka. According to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the 11 Sri Lankan nationals arrived in Sri Lanka this morning on a flight from Doha. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry said their officials received the returning Sri Lankans upon their arrival at the Bandaranaike International Airport this morning.
Newly appointed diplomats to Sri Lanka handed over their credentials to President Ranil Wickremesinghe at the President's house in Kandy today. The ambassadors are from Latvia, Cambodia, the Philippines, Portugal, Finland, Norway and Venezuela.
At the President's house in Kandy this morning, Ambassador of Latvia to Sri Lanka, Yuris Born, who will be based in New Delhi, presented his credentials to President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Leo Tito Ausan Jr., the Ambassador of the Philippines to Sri Lanka, who will be based in Dhaka, and the Cambodian Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Khe Kwang, also presented their credentials to the Sri Lankan President. The list of ambassadors who presented their credentials also include João Manuel Mendes de Almeida, the Ambassador of Portugal to Sri Lanka, Ambassador of Suriname to Sri Lanka, Arun Kumar Hadian, and Issei Abdillahi Asove, the Ambassador of Djibouti to Sri Lanka. They will be overseeing Sri Lanka from the embassies based in New Delhi. Clement Pedro, the Ambassador of the Republic of Angola, Kimola Vedita, the Ambassador of the Republic of Finland, Ambassador of Venezuela, Capaya Rodriguez Gonzalez, and the Norwegian Ambassador to Sri Lanka, May Elin Stenner, also presented their credentials to President Wickremesinghe.
Asian gold medalist Sri Karunaratne met President Ranil Wickremesinghe and First Lady Professor Maitri Wickremesinghe at the President's house in Kandy today. During the meeting, President Wickremesinghe instructed the Central Province Governor and Chief Secretary of the Central Province to expedite the construction of the sports ground of her school with government funding.
Sri Lankan athlete Sri Karunaratne, who claimed the gold medal for women's 800 meters event at the Asian Games in October, met with President Ranil Wickremesinghe and First Lady Professor Maitri Wickremesinghe at the President's house in Kandy today. Sri Karunaratne was received with a grand welcome to the Presidential Palace, coinciding with the formal presentation of credentials of the newly appointed ambassadors to Sri Lanka, and had the prestigious honour of having the President introduce her to the newly accredited ambassadors. While congratulating Sri Karunaratne, President Wickremesinghe engaged in a cordial conversation with Sri and the other athletes from her school who were also invited to the President's house. President Wickremesinghe expressed his keen interest in further enhancing the athletic skills of the students of her school, Balala A. Ratnayaka Central College, and sought information regarding the required facilities. According to the President's Media Division, a substantial sum of 220 million rupees have been allocated for the comprehensive renovation of the sports ground of Balala A. Ratnayaka Central College, including the construction of a 200-meter track featuring 8 lanes, a 300-meter training lane, and 4 straight running lanes spanning a distance of 130 meters. President Ranil Wickremesinghe instructed the Governor and Chief Secretary of the Central Province to expedite the construction project, which is scheduled to unfold in 2 phases, ensuring completion within 2 years with funding commitments to be provided by the central government. In addition, an allocation of 10 million rupees was earmarked for the immediate refurbishment and essential requirements of the sports ground under the Chief Secretariat of the Central Province.
Chief Government Whip Prasanna Ranatunga says government aims to introduce a budget with more solutions compared to last year's budget. He went on to say that government stands by the fact that the public must be provided with sufficient income to meet expenses in the current present-day challenges. Meanwhile, independent parliamentarian Vasudeva Nanayakara calls all powers to unite against what he refers to as detrimental measures introduced by the International Monetary Fund.
කිසිම ආණ්ඩුවක් රට බංකොලොත් කෙරුවේ නැහැ. බංකොලොත් කරපු එකම ආණ්ඩුව පොහොට්ටුව. අද අත්‍යවශ්‍ය භාණ්ඩවල මිල, ඉන්ධන මිල ජනතාවට දරා ගන්න බැරි ආකාරයට වැඩි වෙලා තියෙනවා. විදුලි මිල 100%කින් වැඩි වෙලා. රට පාලනය කරන්න බැරි නම් දාලා යන්න කියලා අපි මේ අවස්ථාවේදී රජයට කියනවා.
අඩු මිල වැඩි කියන එක අපි පැහැදිලිවම පිළිගන්නවා. නමුත් කවුගේ කාලේ පැවතිච්ච ආර්ථික තත්ත්වයත් එක්ක අපි යම් ස්ථාවරත් එක්ක ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. අධිකාර ජනාධිපතිතුමාත් මේ ආණ්ඩුව උත්සාහ කරන මේ ප්‍රශ්න ටික විසඳලා රටේ ජනතාවට සහන ටික දෙන්න. දැන් මේ ගෑස් මිල ඉහළ ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා. ඉන්ධන මිල විදුලි බිල ඔක්කොම ඉහළ ගිහිල්ලා ජනතාව බොහොම අසීරුවෙන් ඉන්නේ. මේ අයවැයෙන් ජනාධිපතිතුමා මොන වගේ දෙයක් කරයිද?
මම හිතන්නේ අයවැයෙන් ජනාධිපතිතුමා අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ජනතාවට සහනයක් දෙවි. දෙන්න ඕනේ. නැත්නම් මේ විදිහට ජීවත් වෙන්න අමාරුයිනේ.
වැට් බද්ද 15% ඉඳලා 18 දක්වා වැඩි කිරීම. විදුලි බිල 18%කින් වැඩි කිරීම. මේ තමයි විනාශයේ වට්ටෝරුව. IMF විනාශය තමයි මේ එමින් තිබෙන්නේ මේ IMF විනාශයට විරුද්ධව සියලු බලවේග එකතු වෙන්නට ඕන. ඒකතු කිරීමක් කරන්න පුළුවන්කම තිබෙන්නේ ජනතා විමුක්ති පෙරමුණ. ඕනේ කළ යුතුයි.
අපිට තියෙන ප්‍රධාන වැරදිකත් එක තමයි අපේ රටේ මේ තියෙන වැරදි දේශපාලන සංස්කෘතිය, වංචා, දූෂණ, හොරකම, නාස්තිය, මහජන මුදල් වලින් පුළුවන් තරම් ජීවත් වෙන එක නතර කරන්න ඕන. අනිත් පැත්තෙන් ගත්තොත් අපි මුදල් උපයන ආර්ථිකයක් හදන්න ඕන. ওই දෙක හදපු ගමන්ම මේ රට මාස දෙකෙන් තුනෙන් ගොඩ ගන්න පුළුවන්. මේක නිදහානයක්. මේකේ මොනවද නැත්තේ? මොනවද කරන්න බැරි?
රජයක් හැටියට පසුගිය අයවැයට වඩා විකල්ප අයපයක් ගේන්න කටයුතු කරලා තියෙනවා. රටේ ජනතාවට වියදමට සරිලන ආදායමක් ලැබිය යුතුයි කියන කාරණාව අපි ඉන්නවා. අපි හැමෝම කැමති සුබසාධන ආණ්ඩුවක් හැටියට හැමදාම පවත්වාගෙන යන්න. අවුරුදු ගාණක් තිස්සේ පවත්වාගෙන ආපු එකේ ප්‍රතිඵල අපි දැන් විඳිනවා.
In Alutgama, a 32-year-old woman was reported killed by her husband last evening over a family dispute in a tragic set of circumstances. The husband proceeded to take his own life as the police investigated the matter. With that, here's a look at more news in brief across the island.
A 32-year-old woman residing in Alutgama was attacked and killed by her husband last evening following a family dispute. Later, the 38-year-old suspect tragically took his own life after the incident. Investigations into the matter are currently underway by the Alutgama Police Station and the Kalutara District Crime Division. Meanwhile, the corpse of a person with his feet bound was recovered in a canal in Kalutara area this morning. The deceased was identified as 54-year-old and the police suspect that the person was murdered following a personal dispute. In the meantime, another corpse washed ashore on the beach area along the Marine Drive in Valavatta. The deceased was identified as a 28-year-old resident of Jaffna. Police further stated that there was multiple bruising on the body of the remains, adding that the magistrate's inquest regarding the body will be executed today. In other news, 2.15 kilograms of gold were seized by the Sri Lanka Navy recently during a special operation carried out in Mannar. The operation also led to the apprehension of 5 suspects, a dinghy, a motorcycle and a 3-wheeler. Further, the suspects held in this operation along with the seized gold and other vehicles were handed over to the Customs Preventive Office in Kankasanture for further legal proceedings.
Welcome back. The Columbo Stock Exchange will launch its newest stock trading feature, stock borrowing and lending and regulated short selling. According to the Columbo Stock Exchange, this initiative, which will go live tomorrow, seeks to bolster market efficiency, liquidity and investor confidence in line with international standards. On Friday, the Columbo Stock Exchange said it will cancel all pending orders in the automated trading system to facilitate the implementation of the regulated short selling. The CSE said the pre-open trading session for tomorrow will be between 9 a.m. and 9:45 a.m. The open auction will be at 9:45 a.m. while regular trading will be between 9:45 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. until market closure. Listed companies began disclosing their quarterly earnings for the third quarter ending September. Accordingly, Swisstech Ceylon has recorded 2.4 billion rupees in sales income for the quarter, while Lanka Tiles PLC reported sales earnings of 4.3 billion rupees. With that, let's take a look at corporate sector news in brief today.
Swisstech Ceylon PLC reported sales of 2.4 billion rupees for the quarter ended in September, down from 3 billion rupees a year ago. Net loss was 22.4 million rupees compared to a net income of 16.67 million rupees a year earlier. Basic loss per share from continuing operations was 16 cents compared to 12 cents. Lanka Tiles PLC reported sales revenue worth 4.4 billion the quarter ending in September, down from 4.8 billion a year ago. Net income was 810.23 million rupees, also down from 1.3 billion a year ago. Basic earnings per share from continuing operations was 3 rupees and 5 cents compared to 4 rupees and 66 cents a year ago. In the September quarter, the Royal Ceramics Lanka PLC reported sales earnings of 17.1 billion rupees, down from 19.5 billion a year ago. The total revenue was 15.1 billion compared to 17.6 billion a year ago. Net income was 1.8 billion rupees compared to 2.7 billion, and basic earnings per share from continuing operations was 1 rupee and 68 cents, down from 2 rupees and 47 cents a year ago.
Leader of the Maima Janata party, Digitalizing, says his party is ready to change the political culture of Sri Lanka. He said this addressing his maiden district conference in Galle today.
The maiden district conference of the Maima Janata party was held at the town hall in Galle under the patronage of its leader Digitalizing.
වැටුන රටක හීනගෙන කරට නැවුම් හෙට දිනට එකම අරමුණට විකට සට කපට කිලුටු පටි නොයන්ද එකට යමු පෙරට නොවැටි යලි නිවට
හරුණ අද හසින් දීන යෝදසින් එක්ව ජය නදින් පෙළ ගැසෙමු දෙදින් උරෙන් නුර දෙමින් හදින් හද බැමින් පෙමින් ලක් මවට පුද කරමු බැතින් සවි බල ගැන්මුණු සතුටුදයක්
මේ ප්‍රශ්න සියල්ලම දිහා අලුතෙන් බලන අලුත් දර්ශනයක් ඉදිරිපත් කරන අලුත් පරම්පරාවකට දේශපාලන බලය දෙන්න තමයි මේ පක්ෂය ඇති කරේ කියලා අපි ආඩම්බරයෙන් ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
එදා ජේ.ආර්. ජයවර්ධන මැතිතුමත් කල්පනා කරා ව්‍යවසායකයෙක් රටේ නායකයා කළ යුතුයි කියලා. එදා ජේ.ආර්. ජයවර්ධනගේ චින්තනයේ විවිධ අඩුපාඩු වැඩපිළිවෙලේ අඩුපාඩු තිබුණත් ව්‍යවසායකයෙක් රාජ්‍ය නායකයා කළොත් මේ රට ගොඩ ගන්න පුළුවන් බවට කල්පනා කළා. මේ රට ගොඩ නැගීමේ ව්‍යාපාරයේ ගාමක බලවේගය දිලිත් හැටියට පත් කරගෙන මේ පක්ෂය ඉදිරි රජයක් ගොඩ නැගීමටයි අද මේ ගාල්ලේදී අපි අතපොත් තබන්නේ.
Our country needs an appropriate political leadership to drive the country forward. We also need a leader with talent. Only such a leader can take the country forward. We will work with Digitalizing.
මම ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ ජාතිකත්ව දේශපාලනයේ අවුරුදු 30ක් හදවතින් හිටපු නිසා මට මගේ අද සමාජ ප්‍රාග්ධනය සමාජ ජාලාවල සමාජ මාධ්‍යවල අභියෝගයට ලක් කරනවා. අපි හැමදේම කරේ රට වෙනුවෙන්. මම දන්නවා අපි අමාරුවෙන් රැකගත්ත සමාජ ප්‍රාග්ධනය අපේ ව්‍යාපාරවල කීර්තිනාමය අද අභියෝගයට ලක් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසාම තමයි අපි තීරණය කරන්නේ අපි ඍජුව දේශපාලනයට එනවා. වෙන කිසි කෙනෙක් එක්ක නෙමෙයි. අපිම ඇවිල්ලා මේ රටේ දේශපාලනේ වෙනසක් කරනවා. මේ රට අභිප්‍රේරණය කරන්නට ඕන. ඒ සඳහා අපි මහන්සි වෙන්න ඕන, කැප වෙන්න ඕන. ඒක කරන්න නම් මේ රටේ තාරුණ්‍යයට, මේ රටේ කාන්තාවන්ට උන්ට විශ්වාසය දෙන්නට ඕන. ඔබ මේ රටේ ඉන්න, ඔබට මේ රටේ සම්පත් වලින් ඔබගේ ජීවිතයේ සෞභාග්‍ය ලබා කරගන්නට අපිට හැකි වෙනවා කියන විශ්වාසය ගොඩනගන්න.
And that's a wrap from tonight's First at 9. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time. I'm Indivara Yamuatta. Good night.